Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome to something a little bit off the beaten path, because today I'm Let's Playing one of Hearthstone's many single-player modes, the Boom Labs from the Boomsday Project. Hearthstone has been my game of the pandemic. It's up there with all the other really good, slow, turn-based games like Darkest Dungeon and Slay the Spire. So I play loads of Ranked, and I love that, and then there are also some other really cool, fun multiplayer modes in here, one of which they just added. But something else that I've really always appreciated about Hearthstone is the volume of really creative single-player stuff it has. Like, all of the expansions come with their own cool single-player mode. Either a full campaign for stuff like Nax, where you fight through all the different wings of Naxxramas, and do card game boss fights against all the bosses. There are some nifty deck-building roguelike modes, like in Kobolds and Catacombs, and this is something unique among all of them. These are all puzzle modes. Puzzles to figure out the way to kill the enemy hero, to make sure that the board is mirrored, to clear the board, or to just survive.
Experiments. Just visit my recruiter.
There is zero randomness here, there's no drawing, it's just a set board and a given amount of mana and a set series of cards in hand in order to try to tackle the problem. It's really, really cool. So ingenious, too. So these are the first 4 lethal puzzles. And the only goal is to figure out, how do I reduce the enemy hero's health to 0 from whatever they start with.
Try and knock him out.
So we start with this Murloc, the guy.
Check my contract.
So we start with this Murloc, this 2/1 Murloc. So it means we can do 2 damage with him. We have 5 mana total, and just enough to do everything available to us. So our hero power and playing both cards, because that's 2/1 and 2 for 5. So our hero power lets us equip a dagger. That card buffs the dagger with extra damage, and Cold Blood is a combo card. Combo is a keyword that's usually unique to rogues, meaning that it gets some kind of extra effect when it isn't the first card played. You need something to activate it. And for this one, we don't have enough mana to do everything, because we have 4 mana crystals.
Quick and painful.
We have 4 mana crystals and 3 cards plus a hero power. 4, 2, 4, 6, 7 mana total worth of things. Our hero power does 1 damage to the face. So here's what we need to know here. What does the mana worm do? Well, when we cast a spell, it gains attack. And then what does Ice Lance do? Oh, this does more damage than Frostbolt, but on the condition that the target's already frozen. So 1 Frostbolt, 1 Ice Lance, and then attacking once with a buff Mana Worm solves that problem. Gives us just enough damage to find it lethal. This one, we start with nothing on the board, a limited amount of mana, and a lot of cards we can play.
Right?
So this being the very first set of puzzles for the lethal track, these are all going to be very simple. Like this, it's going to be the same for mirror, for survival, and for board clear. And here, what Wind Fury does is it lets a target attack twice. Charge lets a minion attack face on the turn it's played. Otherwise, minions have to wait until your next turn before they can attack. And that's especially relevant here because all 3 minions that we can play, and we do have enough mana to play all of them, and no hero power available to us, means that they're all going to be able to attack on the turn that they're played. So this is all about positioning around this red Flame Tongue totem in the middle of my board, because it buffs whatever is adjacent to it with +2 attack. So we can just take advantage of that positioning by continuing to place things next to it, attacking, and then once they go back to 1/1 because they're no longer next to it, it doesn't matter anymore. So that's just teaching us to take advantage of positioning around ongoing buffs.
Oh, I shouldn't have signed in ink.
Oh, I really like this one because I like how the Frothing Berserker works. It gains attack every time a minion takes damage. So the solution here is going to be to put as much on board as possible, damage it all to buff the Frothing Berserker as much as possible. So we put 2 minions down, there are 4 total on the board, Whirlwind once, and now the Frothing Berserker is up to 6 damage. We attack in, that's more minions damaged, more attack on the Berserker, and I think I messed that up. Oh yeah, I want to actually hit the Berserker with that Shield Slam. What Shield Slam does is it takes however much armor you have, like the 2 that you get from the hero power for Warrior, and it just does that amount in damage. 1 damage for every armor you have. Since we have killed off the Ironwood Golem that was on board with our Rush minions. Rush is like Charge, except you can't hit the other hero, but you can hit their minions on the board. Trade in, buff the Frothing Berserker up, even at the expense of hitting it. So the deal here is the key to this is these 2 reincarnates. Destroy a minion, then return it to life with full health. This is Death Rattle, which means it's an effect that activates upon death. It deals 5 damage to all of his minions, but most importantly gets the taunts out of the way so that we can actually go face with Leroy, who has charge. Taunts would normally prevent you from hitting the face, from smorking. And then, also when you res Leroy, it refreshes his charge because it's treated as a new minion. That's actually a very practical use. You would think that all of these puzzles would be for, like, fringe circumstances, but they're actually not. I mean, some of them are pretty... You have to be in a pretty unique, particular set of circumstances to take advantage of them. But there are actually some really practical combos and interactions that you can learn through this mode. And I think I actually did this wrong. I did this in the wrong order. So what I'm looking to do is first play this, what's it called? Cosmic Anomaly for +2 spell damage. And then that spell gets double damage from spell damage, so it's actually treated as +4, so that can clear the minion out. The elemental that I just played gives my next spell +2 damage, which means that was an 8 damage fireball instead of the normal 6. But if you aren't playing a spell that takes advantage of spell damage, like the coin that just gives you +1 mana, it eats that buff. So that's the mistake I made before, was I played coin before fireball and didn't get the +2 on the fireball. So Carnivorous Cube is one of my favorite cards. Especially when it's played in this one meta deck called Cube Lock. I'm not going to get into that now. But the idea of it is that you destroy a friendly minion, and then when the cube dies, you spawn 2 of them. And then there are also effects that proc death rattles, like Play Dead. So this gives us 4 of these minions that each double the damage that the hero power does. So when you have 4 of them, each doubling your 2 damage hero power, it becomes a 32 damage hero power. Oh, that's really fun. And this isn't a complicated puzzle. This is just a cool, cool domino effect, really. A Rube Goldberg machine. Of death rattle effects going off, summoning minions from the hand, dealing damage whenever something dies.
That will do. I'm going to go lie down.
So I was saying that a lot of these interactions are surprisingly practical, and they teach you some pretty cool, obscure interactions.
Come, let's dance.
And they give you just a sandbox to experiment with these different things with. Like, it's really easy to refresh the puzzles. I think this is always an ingenious way of making you more aware of those subtle interactions. Now that we're onto the... Is this the second one? Yeah. So now on to the second one. We're going to start to get more complex. And we're going to have to suss out which cards we actually need to solve the problem and which are just kind of red herrings. Here, the interaction they're trying to teach you about is that frozen minions can't attack. But if you silence a frozen minion, you silence the frozen status away, so it can then attack. Silence gets rid of all card text, by the way. So if you were to silence this Sylvanas that I have, she would no longer have the death rattle, where she mind controls an enemy on death. But it's random which one you get, so you want to guarantee that you get this 8/8 with charge. So you want to use the Potion of Madness there to gain control of one of the 2 attack minions, run him into the other 2 attack on the opposite side of the board. Oh my god, my voice! And then you can use Shadow Word Death to blow up your own Sylvanas and get the guaranteed King Crush. Oh, this one is about ping-ponging,
I like your style.
ping-ponging the 0/10 on the other side of the board. After it survives damage, it switches sides, and then the death rattle is destroy your hero, applying to whichever side it's currently on. So you don't want it to die while it's on your side of the board. There are a couple of lethal puzzles like this, where it's all about just setting up where this Spud robot dies and self-destructs, and they're all pretty fun. So here, we just have to kind of volley it once to our side and once back, and then buff the Frothing Berserker so it can destroy the Spud. We'll play more with that concept. I think it's later in this set of puzzles, this 7 with Myra Rotspring. This one is not too complex, but there are a couple of ways that you can do this wrong. So we're going to put 1 spell damage on the board from Blood Mage Thalnos. Then we're going to use our Fire Blast, our hero power, to ping this Gurabashi Berserker and give him +3 attack. Whenever he takes damage, he gets that +3 bonus. And so we ping him again with a 0 mana spell, which is supposed to do as much damage as you have mana. We had 0 mana, but we had +1 spell damage from Blood Mage Thalnos, which allowed us to damage the Berserker, buff him, but not kill him.
Most efficient.
So here we have a lot of options and not a lot of mana, but most of these don't take mana. So we're going to get our damage in here. This Kobold Geomancer normally gives us +1 spell damage, but it's silenced, so it's not giving that buff. We could Shadow Step it to get it back into the hand. Play a Leper Gnome, which is going to do 2 damage to Myra when it dies, so we kill that off with our own backstab, and then take advantage of the fact that we have spell damage by just casting a bunch of burn spells on the enemy. And this is a fun one because you just have a wall of taunts stopping our very weak Garrosh from getting through and hitting 10 to the face, and 4 from the weapon. Even that's not enough, though, even before you get through the taunts. Plus, we have this Abomination that does 2 damage to every character, including both heroes and minions. When it explodes, we get a buff Garrosh. So, he would survive that, executed the larger minion, and then we had a cleave left over to finish off the other 2, bring down the wall. And that also left Garrosh with just enough damage to finish that puzzle off. Oh, I love this one! Because this one involves a really niche card. So we have 1 damage there, 1 damage there. These battery packs that are not actual collectible cards, which refill your mana, a card that refreshes your hero power, a bunch of cards actually, but our hero power only summons a 1/1, and a 1/1 without charge at that. So we don't have enough damage, do we, to do 30 health. But what's this? This Death Knight card, Uther the Ebon Blade. It changes your hero power to summon one of the 4 horsemen from Nax. There's number 1, we refresh it once, and when we summon all 4, it destroys the enemy hero. So we don't actually want to use this second pixie to refresh it again. We're going to drop the legendary instead, who refreshes our hero power every time we cast a spell. Here's number 3, but here's the problem. There are 7 minions on board, and there is a hard limit. You see, you cannot have any more minions of 7 at a time. So we have to use this remaining card to clear our own board. So we can summon the 4th and final horseman. You never got to see this interaction on ladder because Uther the Ebon Blade was just not that good. Like, it was very rare that you actually had the opportunity to use this in a real game. So some of these things are really impractical.
Seems Electra is about to explode again.
But I think for the
Why don't
most
you give her
part,
some assistance?
You really do learn some combos that are useful. And at worst, it just generally attunes you to finding creative solutions using just what's in your hand. So you can take a lot of practical things out of this. Plus, it's just fun and so cool to see a lot of these interactions laid bare and some of the complicated problems you can just set up and knock down. So we're going to start here by running the 1/1 into the 5/4 bodyguard, and then playing a Wild Pyromancer. Wild Pyromancers are going to do 1 damage to every minion whenever you cast a spell, and Consecration is a spell that does 2 damage to all enemy characters, for 3 total. So we cleared the board and moved the taunts out of the way. We still have 7 health left to get through. So we're going to Equality, which changes the health of all minions on the board to 1, and with the Wild Pyro still there, the Wild Pyro does 1 to our Tyrion. And Tyrion's Death Rattle is he equips us with Ashbringer, which is a 5 damage weapon. Then we had the 2 damage Charge Murloc, so 7 total. Oh, this is another really fun one because it involves one of my favorite cards from a couple expansions ago. Pogo Hopper. Gain 2/2 for each Pogo Hopper you played this game. So we only have 2 of these, so the most we could possibly get out of just those 2, absent any other card, is a 1/1 and a 3/3. So we're going to play this out, then we're going to immediately backstab it with this legendary that we played, Sonya Shadow Dancer. Whenever you lose a minion, you get a 1/1 1 mana 1/1 copy of it. And Pogo Hoppers are already 1 mana 1/1s. So we're going to get this one up to 5/5 and the next one to 7/7. And then give them all charge. And that's just enough. Along with this Eviscerate we have down here, which normally does 2 damage, but because we comboed it, does 4. Then we still have 2 left over if we wanted to dagger up with hero power and hit face. Also, I should mention, there are a couple of these puzzles that have alternate solutions than the one you see me carrying out.
Hydra is so strong.
I can't take this. I'll never catch up.
For the most part, they're set up in... Oh yeah, this is another really practical combo. Divine Spirit, Inner Fire. So we're going to play a Radiant Elemental and makes all our spells cost 1 less. Then... Nope, this was wrong. Should not have healed that up first.
I'll need to be able to handle more to impress Electra.
And you're going to see in a second why Divine Spirit Inner Fire is a practical combo. So we're going to use Inner Fire to set its health to 1, like to set its damage to 1 like its health. Oops, that's wrong too. Hold on. What this 3/1 on their side of the board, the Auchenai Soul Priest that we're trying to get charge of, does is it turns all healing to damage. We're going to try to play around that, though. So we reduce it to 1 attack using the first Inner Fire. Then we heal it up to 5, so it's a 1/5. With 1 attack, Potion of Madness can take control of it. Then we start buffing its health, doubling and doubling and doubling, and make it a 20/20. And that is a pretty common priest synergy if you ever want to play a priest deck. Divine Spirit, Inner Fire combo decks are not the most popular right now, but it is a practical combo that's been used many, many times before. It's always a cool one. So here we have a shitload of cards of varying mana costs up to 3, but we only have 10 mana, so we can't do too much. We also have the hero power to keep in mind. The Wraithguard deals damage to your hero based on how much damage it takes. Well, it only has 3 health, but if we overkill it, that'll still apply to the hero. So the strategy here is going to be to gain as much armor as possible and then shield slam it. So we need to gain immense amounts of armor. We have 8 things on board, including 3 friendly minions, so that Whirlwind will hit all of our stuff, as well as do 1 damage to both the Wraithguard and the enemy hero. The 1/4 Armor Smith we played gives us a point of armor every time one of our allied units, or one of our minions, takes damage. I did that wrong. So we're just juicing our armor total up for shield slam. I think the charge is what I was missing before.
Nice little raptors.
2/6 summons 3 1/1s on their side of the board. And the armorer gives us 2 armor for every minion they have. That's why we play that one first. Then we get all this additional armor. We're up to 14. They're at 17. We're at 17 armor now, so we can overkill the Wraithguard by 16.
In my stomach.
And that clears that. And they only get more complicated from here. There are still 2 sets of puzzles left for the lethal track, and then there are the other 4 tracks. Well, I should say there are...
I love the smell of fresh
there's the
rain.
board clear track, the mirror track, and... what am I missing? Board clear, mirror, survival. And then the final track is, like, the hardest versions of every challenge for each of those tracks.
One shot, one kill.
So here we're going to do as much damage to as many minions as possible, and then play this healing rain out, which ticks for 1 health at a time, and every time a minion gets healed, this minion on the far left does 2 damage to the enemy hero. So we just have to get it low enough that we can then finish it off with what's on board and what's in our hands. So it's down to 11 from, what was that, 28? 25? And then we have 6 damage left over in hand and 6 on board.
Splishy, splashy, splishy, splashy.
This teaches you all about sequencing, too, which is a really important skill to have in a card game. Making sure that your combos are sequenced correctly and that you're doing things in the correct order to be as efficient as possible. Here, there is an 8/7, I think they're called Bittertide Hydras. Whenever this minion takes damage, deal 3 damage to your hero. So we want to do 7 health in damage to this Hydra, but we want to do that 1 at a time. So Commanding Shout means that my Wild Pyromancers cannot be reduced to 0 health this turn, so I'm free to just cast as many spells as possible to let that Blood Razor Death Rattle go off. And we've already done 5 bursts of damage to this Bittertide Hydra, so 15 to their hero. God, that's fun. That's so good. So these are all cards that buff an old god card called Cthulhu. Cthulhu starts off as a 10 mana 6/6. It's been reduced to 0 mana for us. So we're going to buff him as much as possible, because Cthulhu's Battle Cry, the thing that happens once you play him from your hand, is that he deals his attack split up against all other characters on the board. So since it's just going to be the hero, we have to get Cthulhu up to 1717. Which we do with this final Spirit Lash. Then we just throw Cthulhu down.
My dream ends. Your nightmare begins.
You did it! Let me introduce you to Electra. She's, a bit of a tempest right now.
And yeah, Warcraft lore super does include Lovecraftian ancient gods. And it has for a long, long time.
I suspect there won't be an Electra to assist.
Their influence in the Warcraft lore has only increased over time. In fact, the last WoW expansion was a big Old God expansion. And the current Hearthstone expansion that just came out yesterday is also an Old God themed expansion, Madness of the Dark Moon Fair. It's about this traveling carnival being corrupted by all of the old gods, Cthulhu, Yasharaj,
Surging with power. Act quickly.
Nazath, and Yogg-Saron. Okay, so we have the Tundra Rhino down. That gives all of our beast minions, beasts specifically, charge. So the Timberwolf gives our beasts +1. This is just a strong-ass card. The Savannah Highmane that splits into 2 different 2/2s on death. So we could kill Command Face and hit him for 5 damage. Instead, though, we get 6 damage doing this, because these 2/2 hyenas are buffed with +1 from the Timberwolf. So instead of doing 5 damage to Face, we hit our own minion in order to do 6. I think that's super nifty. Also, I'm pretty sure we're skipping...
I've absorbed too much of the Netherstorm.
We're skipping a
I'm
fight.
overwhelmed.
Yeah, this is 3 out of, I think it was 7? Keepers of the Gate. So somehow we didn't get to see the first one. We'll go back for that at the end of this track. This is the final lethal puzzle until we get to the final challenges later on, in which there is one more set of super hard ones. So I think all we do here is Hellfire to clear all the taunts, which will also clear our 1/1, but that doesn't matter because we have 15 damage exactly on board, and the Hellfire did 3 to him. Or her, rather. Beautiful. You love to see one AoE clear so much off the board. The Bittertide Hydra here is bait. Do not take it.
I've overloaded the whole lab. Somebody stop me.
It only has 2 health, so the most it can do is 6 damage. Plus it's got Divine Shield, which absorbs 1 attack, so you'd have to hit it 3 times to get it to do 6 damage. Instead, you can trade one of your minions into the bomb carrier, in order to do 5 to Face. And then... what is the sequence here? Because I don't think we're running this into Face. I think we're actually going to crush this. That does 2. And then we have enough mana for this. Because this Trog gets buffed whenever you overload your mana as a shaman. Which is what those little padlocks below the mana crystals are. They become unavailable on your next turn. That's one of the class identity mechanics for shaman.
Of me. Aha!
So the very first thing we're going to do here is take this Faceless Manipulator as a battle cry that allows it to copy any other minion on the board. So we're just going to copy the Tundra Rhino, which gives all of our beasts charge. Now, even though the Sandworm is silenced, silence doesn't remove the tribal tag, like what type of minion it is. So that's a beast, it can be given charge, and it especially doesn't stop any buff that you get after the silence has taken place, or something that's persistent on the board like the charge aura from the Rhino. And because that little Timberwolf, giving everybody else +1 damage, is a beast itself, it gets the honors of taking the final swipe for that puzzle and bringing it home.
My reign of terror continues.
Let's see, I think we start this one with the counterfeit coin. Stupid rain pun. We're starting with that. I think we're gonna hit Razor Petal Volley next, which is a card that generates 2 Razor Petals. You cast them for 1 mana, they deal 1 damage. And the whole idea is that we're juicing the Mana Addict, which is now at 1614. Destroying that dragon gives us 2 coins to work with, which is 2 free spells, 2 buffs to the Mana Addict, and away, I'm gonna be just shy. I think my mistake was I didn't need to use the second Razor Petal on the dragon. So let's start this over. Buff the Mana Addict, gain 1 mana for a free spell, spend 2 mana creating 2 1-mana spells, deal 1 damage, eviscerate for 4 to kill the dragon, generating 2 more spells, gain 2 mana, play 2 spells, buff the Mana Addict twice, Shadow Strike for 5, and buffing it again, buff it again, deal 1 damage, backstab to buff it 1 more time, 24. Cool, we did it. That's the final puzzle on the lethal track.
Thank you.
But we still have 1 more to look at.
Better now.
Woo! God, these are fun. So let's go back for the first one on Electra. Let's go back for that real quick, because this involves my boy, the Skater Bot. And yeah, the exact joke that you're thinking of is printed on the back of the card in the flavor text, which we can't pull up unless I go into the collection. But it's there. She did say, "See you later, Bot."
Can you neutralize this?
So this is another one of those Spud puzzles where we have to get the 0/10 to die on their side of the board. And we do that using one of my favorite cards ever, the Warlock AoE, Defile, which does 1 damage and then repeats again if it kills something. And it continues doing that until there's nothing else that it has killed. So we're going to get 3 hits off of it. And then I think we did this right. We hit with the Rhino, and then we coin to Defile 1 more time, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 set up. And it's going to die on that side of the board. Cool! Did that right the first time. I love Defile so much. You just set up these domino situations. I am so sad that it's not in standard rotation anymore. By the way, if you have any questions, I will be glad to explain anything about Hearthstone in the comments. I play so much of it, and I love it a whole bunch, and I hope that you enjoy this episode. Thank you all for watching. Take it easy. Have a good one, y'all.